The film begins in a house located by a lake in a quiet area, where Edward, his wife Connie, and their son Charlie live a very routine life. Connie prepares meals and serves breakfast for them. When Edward leaves to take his son to school before heading to work, he notices that the weather is extremely windy. He asks Connie if she can postpone her trip to the city due to the weather, but she tells him she has to buy a few things for Charlie's birthday. Indeed, after they leave, Connie runs to catch the bus that will take her to the city. When she arrives, the weather is so windy that people are losing their balance as they walk, and papers are flying everywhere. Connie is carrying bags with birthday supplies and is trying to hail a cab, but none stop for her. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind pushes her violently, causing her to bump into Paul, who was walking while carrying a pile of books. They both fall, and their belongings scatter on the ground. She apologizes, and they help each other pick up their things. After that, Connie goes to rest for a while on the steps of a building, only to discover that Paul, the man she bumped into, lives in the same building. When he sees her injured foot, he offers to take her up to his apartment to disinfect the wound. She initially refuses and asks him to find her a taxi, but he tells her that no taxis are stopping in this weather. She agrees to go up with him, and indeed, she goes into the bathroom to treat her wound. After she finishes, she asks to use the phone and calls her son to let him know she'll be late. After the call, she tells Paul she has to leave. He offers her a book from his shelf to read, so she takes it and leaves. She returns home and tells her husband everything that happened, saying a young man helped her. Edward doesn't show much interest and sarcastically says, "If you knew his name, we could have sent him a gift for his help." The next day, when Connie opens the book Paul gave her, she finds a card inside with his number. She hesitates a lot before calling him, but eventually decides to thank him for his help. When she calls, he asks about her foot, and she replies that it's fine now. He insists that she visit him so he can make sure she's really okay. She visits him, and after chatting for a while, he asks her to close her eyes. She agrees, and he lets her read a book in Braille, which makes her uncomfortable, so she decides to leave quickly. Later, she goes to her husband's workplace and gives him a shirt she had bought for him. He is very happy with the gift and wears it immediately, as Edward truly loves her but rarely expresses it. When he asks her what happened at the auction she went to, she claims the auctioneer was there and forced her to pay a large amount. Then Edward gets a work-related phone call, and Connie feels like he's, as usual, too busy for her. The next day at work, Edward's friend asks him, "Did Connie really have to pay a large amount yesterday?" Edward replies, "I was out of town yesterday. I haven't seen her in a long time." This surprises Edward. That same night, he notices something is deeply troubling Connie. His intuition is correct, she has been thinking about Paul constantly. She even goes to see him the next morning and brings him breakfast. He plays music that she enjoys, and he asks her to dance with him. Their relationship begins to deepen and takes a more intimate turn. But she feels guilty and leaves. On her way home, she remembers everything that happened between them and feels sad that it came to this. That evening at home, she approaches Edward while he's working in his office and asks if he needs anything. He says no, then asks, "Do you still love me?" She replies, "Of course, I love you." Then she walks away and holds a beautiful crystal ball he had once gifted her. On their son's birthday, Edward is very attentive and plays with him like any father would. But Paul is still on Connie's mind. The next day, she decides to visit him. Paul treats her with warmth and care, like a father would treat his child. She feels how much he cares about her, a kind of attention she deeply misses, and she grows closer to him. On another occasion, Connie and Paul are sitting in a cafe, clearly in love. Bill, Edward's colleague, sees them and is shocked, then leaves. Connie's feelings for Paul become so intense that she starts rejecting any romantic gestures from Edward. He notices she's buying clothes she never used to wear. When he invites her to lunch, she agrees at first, then cancels, saying she has an appointment at the beauty center. This raises his suspicions. He calls the beauty center from his office, pretending to confirm her appointment. The receptionist tells him there's no appointment under his wife's name for today. That day, Connie decides to visit Paul, but before going up to his apartment, she runs into two of her friends outside the building and ends up going with them to a nearby cafe. While sitting with them, she says she needs to make a call. She phones Paul, explains what happened, and asks him to wait for her. A little while later, Paul enters the cafe and sits at a nearby table. When her friends see him, they start complimenting how attractive he is. Connie feels proud that he chose her to be his lover. One of the friends says, "I wish I were his girlfriend," but the other replies, "That's wrong. She's married. Don't even think about it. Your life will fall apart if her husband finds out, just like mine did." These words affect Connie deeply. Later, when she goes to Paul's apartment, she tells him they must end the relationship before anyone finds out and their lives are ruined, but he refuses. Meanwhile, Edward discovers that Bill, the colleague who saw Connie and Paul, has been taking bribes from rival companies. He fires him. Bill pleads, "I have a family. How will I support them?" Edward replies, "You should have been more loyal to your family at work." Bill snaps and says, "You're the last person who should talk about loyalty. Go see what your wife is doing before you lecture me." Edward is shocked. He had already suspected something. To confirm his suspicions, he hires a private investigator to follow his wife and report all her movements. That evening, Connie is deeply upset and distracted while preparing dinner, to the point where everything goes wrong. During dinner, Edward tells her he fired Bill, her friend's husband, for being disloyal at work. The next morning, Edward packs his bag and leaves for an important meeting in a distant city. Connie pretends to be asleep until he leaves the room. As soon as he's gone, she puts on a new dress she had bought especially for Paul. Edward, meanwhile, is visibly sad and distracted during his meeting, unable to focus on his clients. Connie goes to Paul's apartment and spends the entire day with him. She even sleeps over and forgets to pick up her son from school. The child remains sitting on the school steps with the supervisor after all the other children have gone home. When Connie wakes up and sees the time, she is shocked. She hurriedly gets dressed, runs outside, and drives recklessly while crying. When she arrives at the school, she jumps out of the car, runs to her son, hugs him, and apologizes for being late. That same night, she was sitting at home, crying and devastated. She picked up the phone and called Paul, but before he could answer, she saw her son standing behind her, asking, "Why are you crying?" She quickly hung up and told him she was just feeling a little sad. He innocently replied, "Don't be sad, Mommy. Daddy will be back tomorrow." The next morning, Ed meets with the private investigator, who gives him Paul's name, address, and photos of him with his wife. Ed is visibly shocked, unable to believe what he's seeing. On that same day, Connie is out shopping for groceries. She appears heartbroken and can't hold back her tears. It's raining as she drives home, but instead of heading there, she changes course and goes to see Paul. But she's stunned to find him walking with another woman, both laughing and looking happy. She follows them to a bookstore and then gets into a heated argument with the woman. Paul steps between them, asking the woman to leave, then tries to calm Connie down, but she's now realized who he truly is. Later that same day, Ed goes to the address the investigator gave him and knocks on the door. Paul answers, shocked to see him, surprised at how young he looks. Ed introduces himself and asks to come in. Once inside, they talk briefly about Connie, and then Ed sees the crystal ball he once gave to his wife beside the bed. When Paul mentions he gave it to Connie as a gift, Ed is overwhelmed. The room starts to spin, and before he realizes it, he strikes Paul on the head with the crystal ball, killing him instantly. Blood pools everywhere as Paul collapses. In a panic, Ed covers the body with a sheet and breaks down. He reaches for the phone to call the police, but hesitates and puts the receiver back. He begins wiping his fingerprints off everything. Just then, Paul's phone rings, and Ed hears his wife's voice. She's ending her relationship with Paul, telling him she can't continue betraying her husband. Ed wraps the body in a rug, carries it down in the elevator, loads it into his car trunk, and leaves. He then heads to his son's school for a play. But first, he goes to the restroom, removes his shirt, throws it into the bin, washes off the blood, and puts on a jacket. When Connie sees him, she waves him over. He sits next to her, and she is delighted watching their son sing. When she holds Ed's hand, he looks at her for a long moment. Despite everything, he still loves her. He puts his arm around her and pulls her close. After the show, they return home. Once Connie falls asleep, Ed gets up, takes the car, and disposes of the body at a landfill. He then showers and returns to bed. The next morning, something feels off about Ed. When Connie asks what's wrong, he says he's fine. He recalls what Paul had said about her possibly not feeling comfortable in their home, and offers, "If you're not happy here, we can buy a house anywhere you like." But she responds, "I love our home. I don't want to leave it." Later that day, after Ed goes to work, 2 police officers show up. They ask about Paul. His wife reported him missing, and they found Connie's name and phone number in his notebook. She tells them she barely knew him and only bought books from him. Eventually, a worker at the landfill discovers Paul's body. The police inform Connie at home. When they ask, "When did you meet him?" she says they met at a music school. Ed adds that he was with her at the time. He then asks the officers to leave. After they're gone, Ed walks into the house while Connie breaks down in tears. Later, when she picks up his clothes from the dry cleaner, she finds photos of her and Paul in his jacket pocket. Devastated, she walks away from her friend in a daze. At a party they later host at their home, one of the guests picks up the crystal ball Connie had given to Paul, and asks, "Where did you buy this?" Connie looks at her husband and realizes he must have done something to Paul, because that crystal ball had been with him. She later confronts him, "Did you kill him?" He loses his temper and yells, "Yes, I killed him. And I wish I had killed you too. You threw away your home and your son for some boy, and now he's dead because of you." He reveals he knew about the affair since the first day it began. She runs off in tears. When their son asks why she's sitting alone, she hugs him and says, "I just want you to know, no matter what happens, your father and I love you very much." The next morning, Ed is teaching his son to play the piano while Connie sits beside them. When she picks up the crystal ball, she finds a message inside, a photo of the three of them when their son was a newborn, with a note on the back, "The most beautiful thing in all my days." That night, Connie burns all her photos with Paul in the fireplace. She remembers the first day she saw him, when he invited her to his apartment, and she wishes she had just walked away. When Ed sits beside her, she tells him, "I'm so scared," and asks, "What are we going to do?" He replies, "I'll turn myself in." But she stops him, "We'll get through this together. No one will ever know." He answers, "But we will know." The next day, they sit in the car in front of the police station. But she begs him, "Let's sell everything. Let's leave this country and live by the sea, just the two of us, away from everyone." He agrees, holds her as she cries, and forgives her. Unfortunately, people who run from their emotional problems through infidelity lose their dignity and betray themselves before they betray anyone else. No one is worth feeling this kind of guilt over. Try to solve your problems and face them, don't escape through betrayal. And here's the question, would you be able to forgive someone who cheated on you? That brings us to the end of today's film summary. Don't forget to support me with a like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of my future videos.